Oh yeah, it's one of those things where you got to make every scene count, and a lot of the shows that don't have much going on for it always drag every scene or add scenes that are not necessarily relevant to advancing the story, so to say. But I very much enjoyed Stranger Things. I'm very curious to see what they may do with a possible second season. I don't want to say too much, but the end of the last episode felt very resolved, and due to the immediate reaction to the show, I really do hope that they don't go too far with the second season, because it felt like a very well contained first season that could easily just be a one-off thing.
Oh man, that makes me excited and also worried, because I wouldn't want them to make like a great first season and then kind of like, oh, we need to kind of have a sort of tied in season. So why don't we have them when they're older? And it just I know this takes place in the 80s, so it's like, oh, what if it's 90s now? And it's like that I am worried that they get too much success and it goes to their head and they make something that they're not really fully into.
Yeah, it happens. So there's that. I just want to say it's great to be back, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yes.
It's been so long, I don't remember what episode we're on. I need to...
we are on this episode.
We're on this episode. That's the perfect way to streamline any episode of the podcast that we don't remember where we're on. It's this episode. Not that episode. It's this episode.
Yeah, not that other episode that we say it's this episode. It's this episode.
So we are on... Let's see. I was just glad that we were able to be very consistent in the fact of being able to review all the episodes of Game of Thrones. A few weeks ago. Yeah.
Good on you for posting those up there.
So we're on episode 184 of the Bloody Thrones podcast.
Lordy, that is a good accomplishment.
I would say so. I think that while other podcasts are still even working on getting that close to those numbers, while we're here on the top because we started from the bottom.
We're providing a public service to everyone out there. we can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep as fully informed as I could in terms of the things going on in the world. Trying to play some games.
Yeah,
enlighten myself with some books. Enlighten myself with some books. Getting new tattoos. What else can you do?
Yeah, it's for me. I've been trying to just go through some of the older games that I got, through here, and trying to complete them, like To the Moon. That was pretty darn emotional experience. And also trying to read a couple new comic books. I read the Starfire DC Comics run that she recently had, and that's pretty darn good. I laughed, I cried. It was good.
That's good to hear. I did get a chance to read the Wonder Woman Earth 1.
Oh yeah, okay. That's the next one I got to read, because I got that, and I think it's a Batman run I was also suggested, but I'm definitely putting Wonder Woman Earth 1 on the docket.
It's an interesting read. It's more of a it's akin to the older Wonder Woman comics. I guess it was more in the lines of the ideals of the original incarnation of Wonder Woman, where it'd be, I guess, handling situations with words rather than fists. So there's not a lot of action that goes on in this book, but there's a lot more going back to the original mythology, I guess, of Wonder Woman, and it was more of a kind of a setup of what was to come in the future. It's an interesting read for sure. I mean, I'm always a big fan of Grant Morrison, so I was very excited to see what his take would be on Wonder Woman in terms of writing a solo story. I know he's written practically almost the Justice League with his prior Justice League run back in the 90s.
I think him and Jeff Johns have written every single character in the DC fandom.
Yeah, Jeff Johns for sure. He's probably written everything under the sun, even to the most obscure characters you could think of. It was a interesting read. I'm very curious to see where it goes from here, but it's just kind of with the releases of these Earth 1 books, they do take a while, so it may be a while before we even see a volume 2 on this, because a lot of the even the other ones, the Batman Earth ones, if Jeff Johns has done the kind of more of a breaking down of the Batman. He's less of a I guess you could say more godly like Batman, or knows everything that knows everything that's going to happen before it happens. Batman, like the Grant Morrison's written, the more
Prep time,
more ideal, or the more absolute Batman.
Yeah, I can dig that. Was that first issue of Batman Earth 1, was that the one where he's trying to chase a criminal and his equipment malfunctions and he falls into a garbage can?
Yeah, that's the one. And then we have a more grittier and war, driven through the war Alfred that we kind of got a little taste of with Jeremy Irons as Batman, Alfred in Batman v Superman.
Jeremy Irons was, I guess that's perfect for the role. He was an informative butler. It was a guiding star for Bruce, and he was supportive, but he also had a very harsh edge to him when he needed it, and that's what I think is a perfect foil, at least for that for the Batman v Superman style of universe.
Yeah, it certainly matched the tone of the film, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been reading. I want to finish reading up a lot of other stuff that I have on the backlog. I've been reading on and off Why the Last Man for the last year, so I want to kind of to finish that. I really like what I've read so far. It's just kind of a matter of making time to read everything. So there's that, and I'm really enjoying that. It's a good series. Yeah, I very very much enjoying it, and I remember a while back that they were planning on, there's been in development for a while to make a movie of it, so it's kind of been on and off.
When Shia LaBeouf was eyed as Yorick.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf, and it wasn't Brad Pitt at one point tied to the project as well. Yeah,
I think he was big into producing at that time with his company, and I think it was between that project and World War Z. And with how World War Z was adapted, I'm not sure if they should have adapted Why the Last Man, just because it was an interesting zombie film, but it wasn't even close to the source material.
Yeah, but yeah, from what I've read of it, that certainly seemed the case when I saw the first trailer. I was like, oh, it's got nothing to do with this.
And also, just a quick mention before we move on too far. Batman Earth 1, I do like the idea of them taking more time to release these books, because when they were doing the Ultimate Marvel stuff, and they had to release comics every month, Ultimate X-Men was one of those that was in the beginning, oh, this is very interesting, and then as soon as more months went by and the quality of writing was not always there, it's ooh, yeah, I'm kind of wishing these guys took a break.
They kind of had that going on with, I think it was one of the one of the Batman runs. One of the Batman. They have alternating Batman titles that come out, whether it be like All Star Batman or the main Batman run, and then
All Star
there's
Batman, the one that's perfect for memes.
yeah, and then there's like Detective Comics,
Mm.
and there was I don't remember what it was called, but it was more of a it was a different line than All Star, but recently before the rebirth happened, there was
Oh yeah,
there was the weekly Batman releases.
I
They
man,
had
putting
more
out
of the All
weekly.
Star writers and then the All Star uh, and designers and drawers to make those issues weekly. That was for like 52 weeks.
Yeah, that is that must be they must be hard pressed to write and write and color and draw a comic within a week.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I have the two volumes of it that I have here in the backlog to read, but those were primarily mostly released almost either every week or every 2 weeks. They were very hard pressed on that scheduled release for that particular Batman title. I'm curious to see more than likely how the writing was affected and what could have been more of time taken to handle a lot of the art for it too. See how that looks on a very semi-rushed basis.
Yeah, and there's a fine line between taking too much time and not having enough time to write a comic, and there's also what Kevin Smith did with one of his runs of. I actually ordered. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but I took a screenshot of the box that I ordered. Spider-Man and Black Cat, a particular story where Kevin Smith was the writer, and he did like 3 issues in a row, and then he took a break for like an entire year, and then came back to the project. It's like, ooh, yeah, he was going to be the series regular writer, and they were just like, yeah, you kind of took too long on just writing this one story arc that we commissioned you to do, so we're going to go with somebody else.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did get to check that out. That was looks like a very nice cover right there.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's I gotta say it's right up there with some of the other really great stories that they have, like Kraven's Last Hunt and the Death of Gene DeWolf. And speaking of Spider-Man news, we had the new casting today of what's her name, Zendaya. Anyway, for the new Spider-Man film, we have Spider-Man Homecoming news of Zendaya, who is a Disney Channel star, who is apparently going to be playing Mary Jane.
There you go.
And this is unfortunately news because people can't accept the idea of Mary Jane being played by an actress who is half white and half black. I don't get it, and it's some people just they're weird about race, and just there's no actual argument here.
No,
Like,
it's happened. I mean, with different characters in the realm of movies or comic book adapted movies, there's been there's been a bunch of times where the ethnicity of the characters changed from the comic. We had we had what was his name?
Idris Elba and as Heimdall and Thor.
There's that, and there was Harvey Dent's change back in like the 90s.
Billy D.
Billy D. Williams, he was barely in the movie.
With some terrific malt liquor.
I mean,
I feel like it's like one of those commercials, and like that's all he'll ever be known for: Lando and malt liquor.
there you go.
Yeah, and
I guess to tie with that, we had a while back we didn't have the chance to talk about a good sum of E3, but there's an announcement of the new Spider-Man game in development for PS4.
Oh yeah, that looks great, and I'm very, very jealous.
I I liked what I saw. It certainly will take that with a grain of salt to see how much of that is gameplay or not. But it
Yeah.
looked really impressive. Very very akin to Spider-Man 2.
Hmm.
I mean, that's kind of what we always wanted, is like a next gen Spider-Man 2, less Bubble Boy side quests. But that's just me.
Are you sure you don't want more balloon fetching side quests?
I like to
Balloon.
I like to see that they add that in there for as an Easter egg for a one-time thing. But that was
They
just the problem with that game at the time. It was really cool. It was really cool to have an open world Spider-Man game, and it was really well done. But really wasn't much to do besides the main storyline, and the side quests were just the same five things.
Oh my god, I can hear the theme of the delivering pizza theme in my sleep of just like da 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 da, and just you, yeah, it makes me angry because I think about like, oh, okay, I'll just take this very easy path on over. It's like I jumped too high, I guess, and the pizza's now ruined. Like I guess this is how all pizza boys must actually feel when they swing on over to my house to drop off a pizza.
And Tobey Maguire's delivery on his voiceover lines while he was in bed.
Oh god, yeah, he must have had a cold or something. It's like it's weird because Tobey Maguire's not a bad actor, but like when he does voiceovers, that was just like I guess they had like an afternoon to like, okay, just say the first thing, like, oh, hi, Mary Jane, how are you? She's being kidnapped by Dr. Octopus. We need to do that take over again. No, 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 no. We're good. We're done with that take.
Yeah, I guess there's sometimes a disconnect, I guess, between acting on screen and just acting behind a booth, and a lot of that can also be attributed to the voice director as well. You got to have one of those as well that's really good at it. It much depends. Like it's really was a case for that game, and at the time where they were just throwing celebrities left and right to do voiceovers in games, and not a lot of them really panned out that well because the voice director was bad, or they were bad at doing. They weren't used to doing that. There's a difference between the two, and that certainly shows a lot, especially with some of the older games back in the PS2 days when they had a bunch of people voicing characters in GTA or other or
James
other games,
Woods,
like Christopher Walken in True Crime.
Oh, Christopher Walken he is a gift to the world every time he opens his mouth, and everyone was just in awe of his glory and splendor. He could be in like like 200 bad films in a row, and people will be like, his average workload for a month, but people would still be like, that man is a genius. We must cherish him.
Absolutely.
Oh, and you were saying you wanted the cameo of the Balloon Boy. They actually did do it for Ultimate Spider-Man, the game that was based off of the comic book series, where they had Venom and Spider-Man switching between the two storylines, and it was a pretty good game. But they had a very funny moment where the little boy with the balloon was Venom's first victim.
Nice.
And everyone was just like, "Yeah, you did us a solid on that one."
I love it. I mean, I was a fan of that, and then even before that, I was a fan of the two Spider-Man games they came out with that was based off the animated series. Those were good too.
Yeah, was it the Spider-Man 64 or whatever one was for the PS1 and the N64, where they got I think Christopher Daniel Barnes, who voiced Spider-Man. I always liked that voice of the Spider-Man character, and they actually put some thought into it.
Yeah, it was always my favorite. Very much akin to Kevin Conroy's as Batman. That's always been my ideal version of Spider-Man growing up. Mm-hmm. That's what got me into Spider-Man is that animated series.
Speaking of Kevin Conroy, have you watched the new Killing Joke?
I have.
Okay, I have not. What is your impression on it?
Well, I wasn't a fan of it be honest with you. I
Ooh.
wanted to like it very much. It couldn't have been more perfect casting with just having practically three folks from the animated series. You know, we had Kevin Conroy's Batman, Mark Hamill as the Joker, because he's
Love him.
even though he says he's just retired the voice, he said that he'd come back if they did
He's
a
been
Killing
saying
Joke.
that since Arkham Asylum.
That's true. And the Tara Strong is Batgirl.
Oh, nice.
So
Was she Batgirl on the animated series?
yeah, I believe so. I believe she was. She was Batgirl in the animated series, and not relatively recently she started doing the voice of Harley, and later down the line, I guess I don't know if it was on the show itself or maybe we know
Oh, no.
in the games for sure, but
Yeah, no, the first Arkham game, that was the original voice actress who did Harley Quinn.
yeah.
And then with City and Night, and I think Origins, they changed it to Tara Strong because she can pretty much do that voice and also be consistently good and not mind probably taking a lower paycheck.
Yeah, it was it was interesting to see because I was very hyped for the movie as well, and it's very much the case where they tried to make the movie longer than it needed it to be because we know that Batman Killing Joke is a very short one-off story, and it could be really considered the final. It could be considered like the last story between Batman and the Joker, if however you interpret it. If you haven't read it at this point, there's a scene at the end of the comic. There's a few panels at the end where Joker shares a joke with Batman, and people find it a little bit weird that he's laughing at the joke after everything that's gone down with Joker shooting Barbara Gordon and paralyzing her and taking what would be considered, I guess, more rapey kind of photos, but it was never necessarily.
No, it's not overtly shown.
Overtly shown, and it was insinuated. And then having Jim Gordon go through a carnival ride to make him mad, and Joker trying to prove a point that anybody can be like him if they had a bad day.
Oh yeah.
And at the end of the panel, after Joker tells Batman this joke, they'll both laugh, and then you see Batman grab Joker by the neck, and then you stop seeing Joker laugh at slowly panel by panel, and it kind of insinuates that Batman killed the Joker, thus making it the Killing Joke and the final story between how the final story of Batman and Joker and how that ends, how that could have ended.
Yeah,
practically.
They have that last panel where it looks like Batman. Of course, it's like silhouettes, so it looks like he's either laughing. Batman's laughing hysterically, holding the Joker's shoulders to steady himself, or strangling him while the Joker is laughing. And that's how I like how they did the ambiguity there.
Yeah, and I certainly can see how that could happen, especially just how really vicious the Joker was in this one, and how he went above and beyond to really piss off Batman. And and that certainly can be the way how their story could end, and that was kind of how it was written off. It was more of a one-off thing. But it's weird because, as you know, the DC continuity is all over the place.
Yeah, just flip a coin and see how it turns up today, and it's a different continuity than the one that you were using last week, or if you're Grant Morrison, it's all the continuities.
Grant Morrison, he uses everything, so I'm.
He's like the Native American. They don't let anything go to waste.
That's what I love about Grant Morrison. A lot of people give him crap for his stuff, but he genuinely seems like a cool Zen guy, and I can't fault him for wanting to incorporate all the elements of Batman, and I certainly can respect that. I ever read one thing that I really, really hated from him because he knows a lot of these characters like the back of his hand, and I never really read anything that really went against a lot of the characters he's written, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And occasionally a lot of writers, it seems like, they won't do their homework on what people respond to well with characters or even their character's history. But with Grant Morrison, he's like, no. Let me show you all of the stuff interconnected, and I will give you some new stories to enjoy.
So there's that. That was The Killing Joke, but that's it's weird. Like I said, the DC continuity is weird. It was supposed to be a one-off thing. Alan Moore wrote on a whim, and I guess he wasn't. It's weird because even when he's not passionate about something, he still writes something that's very memorable.
It's considered one of the best Batman stories because it's almost been accepted as full-time canon. Because even like Arkham Knight references it directly in one scene, or in the comics where it seems like, okay, Barbara Gordon is going to be paralyzed for the rest of her existence because of the Killing Joke.
Yeah, it's pretty much kind of how that spawned. It's supposed to be one-off, and just got so popular that it ended up just being sort of canon in a way, where that's kind of how it spawned Oracle now from kind of then on, and just you get a little bit of either Batgirl depending on timeline of continuity you want to go with in terms of how you write the story, or it'll be something afterwards where it'll just clearly she's been accepted as Oracle and is taking it to task at that the way that it is right now. And it was really supposed to be more of a story about perseverance and kind of persevering through a traumatic experience in your life, and that's just kind of how I interpreted it. A lot of people considered it more of a exploitive kind of content in terms at the time that I guess it not even that I could think of. Maybe I'm wrong at the time it came out, but nowadays, just with a lot of the feminism going on and a lot of quote unquote the female, I guess
you could say social justice work.
Female equal opportunity now is with the whole Ghostbusters remake and everything, which we've had a lot of female led movies in the past. With no one's seen Alien, I guess.
No, I mean Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
There's that too. Yeah.
Aliens, and I will say one of my favorite movies of all time has a female lead who is fantastic, which is Pitch Black. Depending on how you see who the protagonist is, you got Cabin in the Woods, you have Salt with Angelina Jolie, or The Hunger Games. And it's weird that some people draw the line in the sand at particular stories just because they don't like not even the content, but the representation outside of the content. And I mean, it sounds like they tried to make Batgirl's role a little bit more juicier from the comics in order to maybe offset the negative implications.
Well, the thing with the Killing Joke animated movie is they added an additional 30 minutes in the beginning of the movie that really wasn't in the comics. It was more of a little bit of a introduction to Batgirl and what she's kind of, what she's going through her early years as Batgirl, and you have this kind of butting head relationship with Batman, where she insists that she's not into him at some point, and then at another point they're arguing on a rooftop, and it leads to them having relations together on the roof.
Is it just as weird out of context as it is in context?
It's weird either way you spin it, because it's no matter how you spin it, it's always gonna be weird, and people, well, some people, or Bruce Timm will argue with you that they kind of had something going on if you even bothered reading the Batman Beyond 2.0 comic book series, where it was spun off from the Batman Beyond cartoon show, and they both had relations, and that Barbara had Bruce's kid at some point that was I guess aborted or something, or lost.
Oh, okay. Wow. Bruce Timm, I love you, man. Your work on the animated series is second to none. You've raised the art form of animated superhero show to an art. Maybe you want to back off on this one.
Yeah, it didn't bother me that much, but it just didn't feel right to me. It
Didn't feel organic.
No, it was just it was crammed in there, I guess. And Batgirl seemed very much a kind of one of those characters where they're very headstrong about something, and whether when in reality reality they probably should spend some more time training, because it's alluded into the 30-minute kind of prologue before the actual Killing Joke even starts in the animated movie. She hasn't been doing this for too long, and just one of those kind of headstrong characters.
I'll take you on.
I'll take you on.
I'm sorry.
Ready. I'm ready.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I heard the name. I heard the word twice in a row, and I'm like, don't say it. Don't say it.
But there's that. I necessarily wasn't too big of a fan of it. That necessarily wasn't much.
That's too bad.
That wasn't much of the whole big problem with it. It just it was weird, because I'm used to, if you're bringing people from the animated series to do this, it just feels weird, because it to me still feels like it's in some ways in continuity with that, because Batman has always been more of a father figure to everyone that he's kind of trained up, and that to get to that point, it just felt weird to me.
But, yeah, it does seem kind of weird that the father figure would kind of go that route.
But there was that, and then there was also a side story with this other this other stalker or gangster that was really into Batgirl, and that story arc never really went anywhere, besides, I guess, leading to his capture in prison, and him vowing to get out, and just after that it just kind of goes back. It felt like two different movies, and it goes into the route back into the Killing Joke, which what I've been looking forward to. It was, I don't know if it just doesn't translate well on screen, or if maybe the story didn't have the biggest impact that I thought it did, because maybe it aged. But I need to reread it again. But wasn't a huge fan of how it was implemented and how it was executed. The animation was really spotty at times. Like, there were some scenes that really didn't look that bad, and other scenes just looked like it wasn't anything special. It doesn't feel like it was a lot of work was really put into the animation. And they had Ray Weiss as Jim Gordon as the voice. You know, Ray Weiss has done a lot of different roles. He's primarily known for, I guess, being Leland Palmer on Twin Peaks. If you've seen Twin Peaks, or he's in Reaper, remember that show? He was in that.
I do remember Reaper. Huh.
There was that. I wasn't a big fan of his. I mean, he wasn't in it that much, but his voice didn't really go well with Jim Gordon's as well as it should have.
It's a weird balance with Jim Gordon, because you want kind of an older, experienced guy for a tough, grizzled police detective, but you don't want him to be too old, because you want him to have some fight and spark left in him, but you don't want him to seem like too gung-ho and ready, and that's a hard balance to find.
Yeah, it's a really hard balance, and it's just mostly a lot with him in this story. It's just him very much yelling in shock with just everything he's going through by the hands of the Joker. It's just primarily a good chunk of that. You don't really get a whole lot of fleshed out with Jim Gordon in the animated movie, unless you really know Jim Gordon from other incarnations.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt that the animated series, Jim Gordon was really good, and Bryan
Oh, yeah.
Cranston did a really good job voicing Jim Gordon, and I think one of the animated movies may have been Batman Year One that did a
Oh yeah, he was
movie of
really good
that.
in that one.
I thought he was
Yeah,
really good as Jim Gordon. There's
yeah.
that. I mean, Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy always do a fantastic job playing the roles they've been playing for over 20 years.
Oh,
And
yeah, I mean, can we please just get them reading a dictionary so we can keep on using their voices for Batman and Joker stories from like for 20 years from now?
I would love it. Um, but there's that. It just that extra 30 minutes to the animated movie wasn't really needed. But at the same time, I feel like they didn't put that much work into this after all this hype. I feel like the budget was really low on this, and the animation wasn't on par with anything. Like the Batman Mask of the Phantasm had better looking and better production value than this, and
Oh,
it
Jesus, serious?
Batman Mask of the Phantasm looks 10 times better than the Killing Joke. In my opinion,
Wow, that's disappointing.
yeah, it's I definitely want to reread the Killing Joke again to see how it compares to the animated movie and see if it's better on paper. I think it's one of those things where it's probably better on paper than it is on
Mhm.
any kind of other medium, or at least the way it was attempted. Maybe it wasn't as well as it should have been. It's a shame because that was one I was really looking forward to, and it just after the end of it, I wasn't all that excited to go see it again. It was one of those things where it's a very iconic story. It could have been handled differently for sure, but DC animated movies recently have been very hit and miss. But
Yeah,
I mean, at least the ones that they have more hits than misses. But the ones they've had recently have been very much the important ones that you would hope that they would at least ensure that it was a hit rather than a miss. But just certain decisions they made with Batgirl and Batman ticked a lot of people off. That just
hmm
that didn't help any matters, and just kind of the way that it was presented to you, and just the lack of efficient animation didn't really help that much.
yeah, but I gotta say, for the most part, WB and DC's animation stuff has been pretty consistently good. I mean, two of my favorite superhero films are Superman versus the Elite and Batman Under the Red Hood, where they really got just all those elements together. And I'm sorry that that just didn't really come together for this one. Even though, with those other films, they've also adapted that material to be better suiting for a standalone film rather than going through the eons of backstory that you can do in a comic book, but you can't really do in a film. So I'm sorry that to hear that they didn't really try to make a solid standalone story that kind of just tied in with itself.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunate. I think part of it was the animation was very very different, and the design of the movie was very different from the comic. I think one of the most effective parts of that comic was just the way it was drawn
Mm.
and colored. And I think that was really what had a big impact on it. And it just felt and looked like something very different than what you're normally used to seeing in terms of like the Batman comics at the time. It had more of a close to realism kind of look to it, rather than more of a comic book style drawings, so to say. It was very close to realism in the way it was drawn, and this one just felt more of a cartoon. It didn't feel. It just. I guess that's what took away from the impact of the story it was trying to tell as well.
It was big R-rated too.
Yeah, but it's one of those. It's one of those easy R ratings they can get with just like a curse word or two. There really wasn't much difference between that and a PG-13 movie.
Oh, okay. Jeez, that's
One of those cheap rated R movies. They
maybe say the F word one too many times.
Yeah, pretty much. And that was just even in the prologue. In the 30 minutes was probably where I got that rating.
So it sounds like if that prologue was cut out, then people would have a much better maybe a more positive experience with this movie?
I would say so. That was certainly a big detriment of it. If you skip the 30 minutes of it, you probably may get a little bit more enjoyment out of it. I still wouldn't be all high on it if I didn't see the first 30 minutes of it. I'd still really consider it a mediocre animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's really way other DC animated movies I would recommend watching rather than this one. There's plenty of other ones.
Justice League Frontier.
I recently watched Assault on Arkham, and I was really impressed with that one. I didn't really think that much of it at the time it came out because it was kind of a little bit of a spin-off of what was going on at the time with the Arkham games.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, they had the same kind of design for Harley Quinn with that and the Arkham games. Very much similar story to Suicide Squad.
Yeah, from reports of the reviews, I haven't seen it yet, but apparently they could have used a little bit more of that Assault on Arkham storyline rather than whatever they went with.
Yeah, there was that. And you haven't had the chance to watch Suicide Squad yet?
No, it was one of those things where I wanted to. I was kind of worried about after Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. I wasn't particularly hot on DC, so I wanted to see what people were saying. And it's not like it's getting worse reviews, but it sounds like okay, it's maybe not as worth it. But apparently there are good elements in there, like Will Smith as Deadshot, and apparently Jared Leto's actually good as a Joker when you have those. Apparently he's not the whole thing, but whenever he's in there, he's interesting, and Margot Robbie's pretty good as Harley.
Yeah, it's more of a character-driven movie than in terms of, I guess, the interactions between one another. But you get a good idea of their backstory in the beginning. You have snippets of them, little montages between them. And that's where a lot of the soundtrack songs come from. Is them implementing primarily the some of the soundtrack songs in the movie, just kind of like the music that people have been referencing that it was probably
awesome.
Yeah, the soundtrack is amazing, and it's like #1 on Billboard, I believe, for a few days ago. But it was a great soundtrack, and
I never thought there would be a good cover of Bohemian Rhapsody that I would like, but I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm really digging this. This is good.
There's that, and a couple of other songs in there too.
What was that Imagine Dragons song that had like 8 different artists on it?
Well, it's like I think I got Lil Wayne in there, and there was some other. It may have been that "Torture You" song. I torture you.
Oh yeah, that was it. What is it?
Sucker for Pain.
Sucker for Pain.
There you go. That's a good song.
Yeah.
But a lot of those, you get little highlights of the soundtrack in the first probably 30 minutes of the movie, where it just illustrates a lot of the backstories for each character to have their little introductions and little very colorful splashes on the screen with their bio. You also had you had that, and it was I enjoyed it for what it was. It wasn't perfect, but it's very much a character-driven film in terms of the interactions. The story itself, it's very simple, yet the villain could have been done better.
Kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, it's the problem some of these movies have. They have really great, I guess you could say for this movie, villains or villain protagonists, but they never have another character in there that they go up against that's as interesting as them, or that you really don't feel a whole lot of menace with them.
Yeah.
Enough to really care or feel like they're a threat. That's usually the problem with some of these movies, and this one unfortunately suffers for it. I don't think it's I don't think it's primarily the main reason why the movie is getting these low reviews.
Mm-hmm.
There's some slight pacing issues, but besides that, I feel like if you're a very big fan of these characters, I think you'll very much enjoy the movie for what it is.
Okay, you got it. I'll add that. I'll notch that on the list of things to watch. And you know what? And as you were talking about the villains, I had a thought about, you don't always need to make villains sympathetic, because I think that's a problem that they either make them too menacing, like they either try to make them like super egomaniacal, or they attempt to make them sympathetic and it doesn't really work. You just need to make them interesting. And if your audience finds them interesting, then they're willing to go with it. For instance, Kenny and I, when we also do a separate sibling podcast, and we were reviewing Power Rangers the movie, and Ivan Ooze, he's not a sympathetic character, but he's interesting, and that's why you're willing to kind of to go with him, just because he's just such a bundle of weirdness.
Yeah, I thought Ivan Ooze was the shit growing up.
He still holds up to this day. Ivan Ooze is he's a magical PG version of Deadpool, and he's pretty darn good in the movie, because like the Power Rangers themselves in that movie, it's just like, okay, whatever, we're teenagers who look like we're 28 and we're here to kick butt. And then Ivan Ooze is just Paul Freeman's just chewing the scene in that one.
Yeah, he certainly was. That it was more of the a lot of the levity of the movie, primarily was with him. Mm-hmm. A lot of the other characters came off
also Lord Zed.
Bland, and Lord Zed was always cool.
And Rita.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's still worth checking out.
You got it.
Suicide Squad. I think. Much like Batman v Superman, I think a lot of the lower reviews are way blown out of proportion. I don't think there's a conspiracy against DC. I'm not trying to insinuate that, but it's the low reviews are way out of proportion. There's
too harsh.
They're too harsh. There's way more movies that deserve those ratings, but I don't think this movie does. It's not for everybody, I guess. That's the way to put it. It's more for the comic fans, because a lot of the stuff, if you were going in there, I guess you were going in there as watching this movie and no really a lot of info, unless you don't follow the DC
right
storylines at all, then you kind of be left a little confused with what any of this means, or what any of the character relations mean and how they impact you. It's
weird,
a tough line.
Because, yeah, it is, because and it's weird because I'm intimately familiar with DC and Marvel in terms of the characters and the histories, so much so that I'm not sure if that same information would be conveyed to somebody who never looked up these characters, who would understand what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think it really translates as well with the mainstream audience, or even mainstream critics as well, which is probably why it just gets these very low reviews like that. Is because a lot of the I guess the relationships between certain characters don't get translated as well, or aren't relayed as well as you think they are, because you're familiar with them with other terms in other contexts, comics or animated movies or any other forms of entertainment. You're familiar with it, so you don't necessarily. I like it that they don't have to explain everything, but at the same time, it certainly can be lost on some people as well, which is why I think it's more made for the fans than in critics, so to say.
Yeah, it's that fine line, and well, it's nice to hear that's better than what the general consensus is, and there have been times that I've completely disagreed with the critics, and like the A-Team, love that one, The Book of Eli, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I will always hold that's going to be my favorite Spider-Man film. So, hey, I mean, we all have different opinions and like different things, so I'll give Suicide Squad a watch.
Yeah, it's worth giving it a chance. I can't guarantee you'll love it, but it certainly has some interesting elements to it and other stuff that will kind of frustrate you in terms of, I wish they had more time to to like to form more information and relationship with like Harley Quinn and the Joker, for example. But that I understand why there wasn't in there that much. It's not really, and I don't understand people's disgruntledness with the Joker not being in the movie that much, because it really wasn't about him, and I never really got a hint of that in the trailers as well, that he was going to be the focal point of the movie or a villain in the movie. It's just more of a it was a nice bonus.
Yeah, and apparently he's setting up more story, and apparently there was actually more shot with Jared Leto's Joker that didn't make the final cut, but hopefully that stuff will be on the DVD.
Yeah, that I'll look forward to watching if they do that, or if I hope they do in the wake of this, to maybe add a alternate version of the movie, just like they did with Batman v Superman, with adding the kind of extra content that was taken out, which I did see that one, and I felt like it was a lot of the stuff that was taken out. Well, it was very vital to the film, and it did make it a better movie. But it didn't necessarily solve all the problems with. No. Primarily, the only problem I really had with the movie was Lex Luthor's motivations, and that's really all about it. That was never really explained, even with the extra content added into it.
Yeah, maybe they'll do, like in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, they have that senator who was in Iron Man 2. And so, I mean, they retroactively gave him a little bit more motivation, a little bit more interest. Like, oh, now I can see how that fits in together. Maybe they'll do that with Lex Luthor in, a future movie. And I will say this about Suicide Squad. That is the first time I've seen the trailer for a movie and said, you know what? I'm interested in seeing Jai Courtney's acting in this.
Much like Will Smith, Jai Courtney very much surprised me.
Yeah, he looks like he's having a whale of a time and gets to use his Australian accent for once.
Yeah, it was amazing. Just that, and I was really surprised by Will Smith as well. I mean, I didn't think that he would be bad in the movie, but there was that fear when it was first announced that he was in the movie, that he was going to be used a lot, primarily than other characters, but.
Like he just phoned it in.
I felt like that was going to happen, and I felt like he was going to be the focal point of the movie, but that didn't happen, and I'm happy that it didn't. He was very good for what he was for. He was great as Deadshot, and he also brought a human element to the movie that kind of tied everyone together. And there will be some characters in the movie that will surprise you that at first glance you don't really think much of them, but by the end of the movie you're like, man, I think I like this character a lot more than everybody else in this movie. Like,
I am very yeah, I'm interested in seeing out Killer Croc and El Diablo and how they all are in the film.
Yes, I look forward to talking with you on those characters as well, and
you got it.
Hear more about it when you go see it. You also get snippets of Batman as well. You may have seen with him on the rooftop of Joker's car.
Is it like stunt double kind of Batman where you don't really hear who it is, so it could be Ben Affleck or it could be a stunt double, or was it Ben Affleck actually in the role?
I will say I will say this: Ben Affleck was in the movie.
Okay, very, very nice. That's so nice to hear, and I like the fact that they're stepping up their cinematic game and saying, like, okay, listen, if he was a big lead in one movie, and so now he's doing a cameo in another one. I'm interested in seeing where that leads, and Justice League, I wish it all the best.
Justice League, I hope Justice League does very well.
And Wonder Woman.
And Wonder Woman as well.
It's a very infectious theme song.
It's amazing. I really have hopes for that as well, and Justice League. I feel like this is going to be the turning point. I feel like I said that before, but this is going to be the turning point of kind of where they're going to go now, because it's no longer being really ran anymore by, I would assume, like
It was
Warner
Zack Snyder and the studio heads.
mainly.
And they,
Yeah, I would assume mainly like Warner Brothers and Kevin Tsujihara, and
yeah,
but now it's going to be really ran by Jeff Johns and John Berg, I believe.
yeah.
It's going to be an interesting turnaround to see how that translates now, because that was more of the, I think after Suicide Squad is where we're going to start seeing that turn. Now that it's going to be under the Jeff Johns regime, he's going to be DC's Kevin Feige, I guess, or Marvel's Kevin Feige.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, Jeff Johns is usually one of those guys who has nothing but praise in the DC community, and they definitely need to have somebody who has a consistent vision, because especially when they don't have a creative oversight studio. They don't have DC studios like Marvel has Marvel Studios. They're dependent on WB to make the film, and they are only really invited on over if they're asked. And then the only time I can remember that really happening was with Green Lantern, when Jeff Johns was actually brought on as a consultant. And they don't really have much say over that. So this is a much better turn, and this makes me very, very happy to hear that they're really, they're putting Jeff Johns at the helm, and they're starting to maybe do a little bit more course correction. And all I got to do is just say, make sure your script is good. It doesn't matter if it's dark. It doesn't matter if it's light. All you need to do is make sure your script is good before you make the movie out of it. Yeah. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I mean, that's all they really got to do. I mean, the acting's always on par. The casting is always on par.
Yeah,
I like the script sometimes goes a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, a little wonky, a little screwy. I still like the fact that they got Ben Affleck as Batman, who's he was really pulling himself up in the entire production of Batman v Superman. I really liked him in the Justice League trailers, and I certainly hope that I'm delightfully surprised with Justice League and Wonder Woman, because that was I don't think we talked about this. That Wonder Woman trailer was really good.
Yeah, it was really impressive, and I liked the presentation of the film, and just getting to see a little bit more of the see a little bit more of the action, get to see the lasso of truth in action.
Mm-hmm. And it looks it kind of reminded me of a combination between kind of the colorful vibrancy of the first Captain America movie meeting the sort of fantastical, exaggerated look of the first Thor film. And that makes me very excited, because that's a different visual style than anything we've seen before in the DC universe, because Suicide Squad is kind of the grungy, dark alley sort of look to it, just from the trailers. Batman v Superman was kind of this grandiose, sort of morbid sort of reflection, and Justice League looks like maybe the next step up of these encouraging fantastical team up. So I'm interested in seeing, just at least from a visual standpoint, how Wonder Woman holds up.
Yeah, I hope that it does a little bit better than, I guess, previous DC films have had. I don't really care that much about the critical reception of it. I just want a good movie. I want to feel like I don't necessarily have to question whether or not I liked it or not, for the sake of me keeping my sanity in terms of whether or not I'll continue watching these movies or not. I just want a good movie, and I want to say that I enjoy it and have no doubts about it. That's the thing. There certainly can be a balance between having something that will be for newer audiences and also for familiar audiences with the characters. There certainly can be a balance. Just depends on how they want to go with that.
Captain America: Civil War, with how they were tying into their own movie universe and the comic books and little winks and nods here, like the fact that Spider-Man and Captain America were on the same team at the end of the Civil War in the comic books, and so they have that moment where they're connecting on the battlefield. Was that's a nice nod to the audience, but they don't stop and say like, "Oh, look at this." And so I'm very, very interested to see how they do Justice League, because I'm interested in seeing how the team works together.
That's going to be very magical.
I am looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which is going to be coming out next week.
It just came up suddenly on my radar because I hadn't really been following that game. I've been following that game because I wanted to keep an element of, I guess, surprise in terms of what I wanted to see, especially how I liked that game and how it changed kind of the outlook on it, especially with your decisions on kind of what you want the ending to be. I'm curious to see what they do to handle that decision you make at the end of Human Revolution in this game.
Yeah, because it's also a direct sequel. And with Adam Jensen.
Yeah, that's what got me, because depending on what you choose, there really can't be a sequel with him at the end of Human Revolution, and I'm curious to see what they do with that. It may be one of those things where it'll be like Double Agent, where they don't necessarily make much references to the last game, which is gonna be kind of interesting to see. And it'll be hard to do, especially because that Human Revolution ending had huge implications to the future of supposed titles after that, if they decided to do it. But now we have this, so it's just got to have some impact on it, on the current status.
What Deus Ex Invisible War did after the first Deus Ex was it said all three endings were actually canon. And so I wonder if they're going to do that, or if they won't talk about it, or maybe it'll be its own, maybe kind of separate continuity where they make a decision about the ending of Human Revolution, like they did for Metro Last Light. I don't know, and so part of me just doesn't want to look at spoilers and figure that stuff out, because I would like to be surprised by that. So yeah, looks like it's getting good reviews too, 8s and 9s from a lot of good sources.
Yes, that's great to hear. I mean, I wasn't necessarily worried about it, because I feel like the Eidos makes some pretty solid games, and they have a really interesting property in the setting and themes and that is going on with it. That it could be easily messed up. It could be easily messed up that way. You could easily mess that up, but it seems like they have a good grasp on it, especially with Human Revolution. I feel like there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of problems with it. There wasn't a lot of problems with it besides kind of gameplay and design decisions. That was some of the stuff in question with Human Revolution. But besides that, I found the story and characters very interesting from beginning to end. Kind of how everything played out there.
Especially our golden goddess, Lydia, the trash lady.
I hope. She makes a cameo.
If she better be the Illuminati leader of just like it was me all this time. It was me.
It was me, Austin.
Oh, son of a bitch. And also, speaking of interesting sci-fi first-person games that are coming out, Prey, the new games coming out of the Prey franchise are weirdly, it's the original team who did Dishonored broke off and did, one team was going to go do Dishonored 2, and another team wanted to actually do Arcane Studio, wanted to do something new, which was in first person with depth and simulation and narration, and people are wondering, what is the connection between this Prey and the original one, which was back in 2006 or 7, I think. And I think that was a really underrated first-person shooter, horror first-person shooter especially. And people have been wondering, there's been Prey 2 was in the works for the longest time where you get to be a bounty hunter, and that never came to pass, unfortunately. And so we got a new Prey trailer, which looks a lot like maybe Alien Isolation in a well-lit environment. People don't really know what it's about. And when pressed on the matter, one of the developers, Raphael Colantonio, said, well, as a matter of, first of all, it's hard to find a name for a game, and it's a good name, sounds good. I think the association that people have about Prey is that it's about aliens on a space station, and it's a first-person game. So basically, the only reason that he called it Prey was like, well, it's nice, because coming up with titles is hard. That's it. What a story.
Probably that's how it's probably more likely how it happened. But I like that he was upfront about it. At least it's
there is complete honesty in that, man. I do respect that.
Yeah, I'd rather get that than just some some fluff in terms of artistic. You get this whole 5-minute speech or this Peter Molyneux BS you get with why it was called Prey 2.
Yeah, that he would, if it was Peter Molyneux, and this was at QuakeCon, if he started explaining it at QuakeCon, he'd still be explaining it now, in terms of just how much explanation you'd need for the entire justification of it all.
It looks really cool. I give it that. Like the presentation and the design and the potential of what can certainly be an interesting game. Maybe a more, I guess, more complex, or it could be more intense version of Alien Isolation. It could be many things. It could be a more grounded Dead Space. You never know.
I'm looking very, very much forward to it. And pardon me for 1 second. I just have to quickly use the bathroom, and I'll be right back.
Alrighty. Back at it again.
Yes, indeedy. So, for myself, I mean, I haven't been playing too many games as of late, but I will tell you one that I have played and thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm almost at the end, Back to the Future, which was the Telltale adaptation of the classic franchise, where they had Christopher Lloyd come back for the role of Doc Brown.
Yes, I remember that coming out way back before Telltale started making bigger hits. I heard that. Yeah, I mean, I heard that was a pretty good gem for really dedicated fans of Back to the Future. I've seen it a couple times on PSN for sale, and then I think you can play some episodes. I don't know if all of them through the PlayStation Now service. So how did you? I figured by your almost finishing the game, you're very thoroughly enjoying it, at least.
I am. It is not as. It's a little bit more. It's not the kind of more modern Telltale games where it's kind. The modern ones are more kind of like akin to. I don't want to use it disparagingly, but kind of a visual novel where you will go around and collect items, and then you make decisions in your dialogue. And it's kind of more centered around the quick time events and having the character have the dialogue just that you pick justify the character's choices or actions or explanations. And this feels a lot more like a little bit more towards the old classic point-and-click adventure where you kind of have to find the right thing to click on and get the right item for the right tool or like the situation. And but for me, I'm a huge fan of Back to the Future. I was a little worried because like, oh no, they're gonna try to tie it, make something new. But they actually have a very interesting premise, which is they actually have to go back to the early 1920s during Prohibition, and they have to figure out, they have to, Marty has to rescue Doc Brown, who's convicted as an arsonist, and no, who's being arrested for an arsonist, and so he has to figure out how to work out there. But then he goes to a new future where it's they accidentally create like an absolute like a dominating a Brave New World or a 1984 style of dystopia with Dr. Brown he's actually evil in this version, and what I love is that they understand the motifs, they understand the jokes, they don't repeat them, they twist them into new, different, fascinating ways, and I gotta say, AJ Locascio, who is the voice actor for Marty McFly, is spot on. I could have, if you had like synced up, he has the same voice inflections that Michael J. Fox has when he's in Back to the Future, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, he's fantastic. It's like they literally just grabbed the Michael J. Fox of 1985 and they brought him now to voice this character. It's fantastic, and they really have a very interesting look at different time periods. And they also do. It's also still that kind of area of stylistic sensibilities of what the Back to the Future series is. So it's not like it's slightly cartoonish and exaggerated, but just enough so that you'll accept these characters as kind of larger than life, and they build interesting people around them with good writing.
That's great to hear. I remember I saw some footage of it, and yeah, very much like you explained, it's felt very different than your modern Telltale game. You actually had to collect items and solve certain puzzles and kind of like mess with things in the environment, very much to like the older original like kind of way of the point click adventures. You had to like go out of your way to kind of figure some stuff out.
Yeah, fortunately they got a good help system involved in hints. So if you get they'll have different levels, kind of like the Secret of Monkey Island special edition stuff, where they'll maybe have like a vague hint, and then they'll have a more specific one, and then finally the last one will be telling you directly what to do.
That's cool. I feel like that could certainly be helpful in terms of, because I know there's sometimes these things can get very obscure. You'll be sitting there for hours trying to figure out, and it's probably nicer than just kind of going online and looking it up, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could do the YouTube thing and watch the full story, and it's great to hear Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown again. But for me, I'm enjoying it right now of just being able to work through all the different episodes and find the different situations and try to think like, okay, well, I need to use this chemical, but it needs to be aged. So how about I use the DeLorean? But the problem is that it has a problem with how when it can go back in time, and it does those interesting things in the other Back to the Future movies where they inhibit the time traveling, or they have to work with a certain logical problem, and they have to think about what they're going to do in terms of like working around this time paradox. And it's very, very interesting stuff if you're a fan of the series, and this is like the perfect send off so far of Back to the Future, if they can stick the landing. Which and I kind of spoiled myself on this, but Michael J. Fox actually does come back in episode 5 to voice another version of Marty, and which is very, very interesting. I haven't seen what context it is though, so maybe it's a future, maybe it's a past relative. I'm not sure, but I'm very interested in seeing where that leads.
Very cool, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Guess to transition into another Telltale game, I did get the chance to play the Batman Telltale game.
Oh man, I've heard very, very positive things about that, and I'm interested in hearing what you have to say.
I very much enjoyed it. I think the first episode is a much like anything the Telltale's done in the past. It's a very good introduction of what's possible to come in future episodes, and of an interesting possible storyline. It's very much not right now is nothing too different than what you're already familiar with. There's there's certain figures in Gotham that always have their pull into what's going on. You know, the Falcone family, and you have I mean, this is where the formula of Telltale really works with the Batman character, because there's decisions you have to make that will influence the, you know, as how characters view you, and you have to there's this other thing going on with you and Harvey Dent, you know, very close friends in the comics, and you're doing, you know, everything you can to give the people of Gotham very much a sense of I guess relief to know that he'll be the one to lead you on to stop crime and whatnot. And you have also the political aspects of what you do and your actions that it will influence what Harvey's running for, the district attorney. And you get moments with him and Falcone coming to your party uninvited, and you kind of have to like figure your way to handle that situation. And the aesthetic of it looks really great. I think this is probably the best looking Telltale game since like Wolf Among Us, because I felt like the Game of Thrones one was very not on par with what they've done before, and I'm assuming that this is more of I don't know how they kind of work on these things, if they have different teams working on them, but I feel like this is they're on their game with this one in terms of the visual presentation. That really works well aesthetically with the Batman mythos and the character, and it looks like it's as good as the Batman game that you can hope to get, in terms of it looking a lot like you're playing the comic book version of Batman on screen. I think that's kind of a good way to describe it. And you could play the comic book. You get all the colors and the visuals in place, rather than more of a realistic look to it, like I guess in the previous Arkham games, which wasn't a problem with me. It's just a different aesthetic they got going with that works with what Telltale's been doing before. And the models and the textures look a little bit better. I don't know if they're still using the same engine or not, but probably. But I haven't had a lot of hiccups or problems with it like I did with the Game of Thrones one.
You didn't have the event of like the audio cutting out, just like the awkward grunting, with no sound effects of like swords clanging or arrows hitting. It's like, yeah, I've been hit.
No, none of that at all. It has a very interesting, cool thing going for it, and the quick time stuff is still there. It works really well with a lot of the action that goes on, and it's very interesting to see, because it's very much akin to the Arkham games as well, and a little bit of grounded in reality. It seems like it's because you're fighting some of these highly trained soldiers that don't really necessarily go down with like two punches, so it takes you a little while to actually beat them to submission with a lot of the encounters you have when you do a lot of these quick time events. Some of them don't seem like that I saw necessarily consider it to be game over, but it's more, I guess, you get like a special takedown move if you're able to get all the quick time event prompts correctly accurate, and you'll get like a different unique takedown than you if you didn't get it all at like 100% synchronization, I guess you can say. They have an interesting different system that I normally haven't seen before, and it's kind of like that in this Telltale game. So if you get like 50% of the button prompts right, you may not get that energy meter filling up to do like a special takedown on one guy.
Oh, cool! Looks like they're actually incentivizing, really winning and actually caring about the QuickTime events.
Yeah, there's that, and it has like an interesting twist in the end, which It may have been done similarly to some other story arcs that you may be familiar with, but without getting too much into spoilers, it has an interesting twist in the end that questions Batman's whole. It generally questions his whole reasoning for being Batman, and it's very interesting to see what to do in the second episode. There's a lot of has more of a good balance between of humanizing Bruce Wayne and also kind of getting more characterization out of him in this one, and you get some cool action scenes with Batman. You get to see the white light up eyes as he starts fighting these soldiers, and I gotta say I was very impressed by back at it again with Troy Baker as Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting change-up. I always loved Troy Baker, and I'll be interested in this. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it right away because that Game of Thrones, the Telltale series, that burned me, and I was, I really enjoyed the first two episodes, and then it started getting wonky, and then it kind of faltered, and I'm not entirely certain. Pardon me. I'm not entirely certain I want to go through that again. So I will believe you that this episode is awesome. It's just that I'm probably going to wait a little while until I know the investment's worth it.
I certainly understand. In this day and age, we want to be able to fully understand that this title would be worth the time and investment in playing. It's still so very early on in the episode. This is kind of the issues with having to wait on episodic games like this and hoping to see if it turns out well from beginning to end. So I'll definitely keep you informed as I progress on playing it. I certainly feel the same way as you did. I certainly was burnt by Game of Thrones Telltale game, and I felt like I wasn't going to. I certainly will not get season 2 of that, but I certainly felt like I don't know what to make of this model. I was questioning the model after that it came out, and questioning what Telltale was going to be doing in future titles to come, and if they were going to be of this kind of caliber and not well executed kind of attempts at another kind of IP that's already has a name tied to it already, and I have some. It's been a while since that has happened, and it's me being a big Batman fan. I had to play it, so I had good hopes that they'd do well by it, and I really like what I've played in the first episode so far. So I hope that that doesn't turn out to be as similar to Game of Thrones, where it starts to go down the rails a little bit in terms of the quality and everything, and let's hope to see that doesn't happen. But the first episode did leave a great impression, and it had a nice twist at the end. There's some interesting elements of detective work as you put together scenes of crime, and you get to see them take place, and much similar to kind of how they did it in the Batman kind of Arkham Origins, whereas they would put together the whole detail and like the kind of like a hologram view. You start seeing how the crime took place, and you start putting together the pieces. That was kind of like one of the things you had to do in this Telltale game, where you were trying to find out what had happened here, and that was an interesting little different setup and approach to just straight up fighting guys, and that was at least using Batman's detective skills to see what was going on here and to fully find out what's at play here behind the scenes with things that are going on in Gotham right now.
I am very, very interested from what you've said. It sounds like they're changing up the gameplay formula a good deal to actually get people as interested in this and not worry about maybe a rut of kind of the same overall design philosophy of the other Telltale games. But what am interested in is the fact that this was not unlike the Game of Thrones. It's a Telltale edition. It's not tying into directly into a show or into a movie that they have to keep 100% consistent and maybe can't go to the places that they want to. It sounds like this is its own continuity and can do whatever they want to now that they got a license from DC to do so. Is it its own sort of continuity, or is it kind of like a year one sort of event? Or
I would say it feels a little bit like a year one certain kind of event. It's kind of indicated that Bruce has been at this Batman game for not a whole long time, not like 10-year kind of thing, but I would say about a year or two kind of stint, and he's
Good.
like he's still as progressing as he's as good as a Batman as he can be. He's not necessarily the year one kind of thing, or a few months in already, and he's kind of made mistakes or has done something to the realm of like Jeff Johns' Earth One kind of Batman. Not anything like that. More of I would consider it more of a close to as seasoned Batman as he can be, but it's still very early on into the game, a year or two into the game, but still comes off as a very competent Batman. Can get the job done, and yeah, it feels like its own kind of. It could possibly set up its own kind of continuity at some point, but it's still relatively leaning on some of the familiar story arcs that you may have been familiar with in some events. There's the whole Bruce supporting Harvey as district attorney thing. He hasn't turned into Harvey Two-Face yet, but there's the implication that it may happen. And there's always going to be an implication that it may happen, because that's the story. That's his character. That's going to happen at some point.
Yeah,
he turns to Harvey Dent.
It's
Two-Face.
Uncle Ben's got to die. Harvey Dent's got to be Two-Face.
Yeah, it's gonna happen at some point, but there's enough, and there's potential there of it being something new that we haven't seen yet, but still having some familiar elements with it as well. You have appearances of Catwoman in the picture as well. So there's that, and it's interesting to see how that goes forward. I think the voice actress of Catwoman is the same voice actress that did Snow White in The Wolf Among Us, I believe.
Oh, cool! Yeah, I love that voice actress.
So there's that, and there's certainly a lot to look forward to. And I'm liking Troy Baker as Bruce Wayne and Batman. I think he does a pretty fantastic job as he always does. Even if Troy Baker's tied to something, I know he's tied to a lot of things, a lot of projects, but I never get tired by him, because you can never really tell if it's him or not. He always has very, very distinct different voices that he does. I never really hear the same voice twice, personally.
Yeah,
with him,
he's got a very good range.
Yes, that's the best way to describe. Very, very fantastic range. I'm liking it so far. Let's hope that the momentum keeps up with the ending of episode 1 and kind of goes from there. It has a different, also interesting feature you can enable if you choose to do so. If you have other friends other friends that are watching with you that play this game, you can have a setup called I don't remember what it was called, but I think it had something to do with if everyone sets up their phones to the game, and they can vote on the decisions and voice dialogue choices you make into the game as well.
Huh. That's very, very cool.
So that's another interesting feature they added on there if you ever choose to use it. But it doesn't seem like it may work for like live stream, because there's like a minimum of amount of people that you can have at once to do that, to even use that feature. So if you ever wanted get together and play the game as a whole, you can always set that up, and people can vote on the choices. And I guess what the most votes are will automatically be the choice you make. I don't think you have the final say as to the one who has the controller. I don't think you have the final say as to what will come of these choices. It's not like a suggestions votes. It's more of everyone votes on it, and whoever gets the highest votes is what's going to go. Is what's going to go from there.
Oh wow, that's that would be very very interesting, especially if you decide to get friends who love asking your opinion for what you'd pick, and then choose the polar opposite of that just to mess with you.
Yeah, and there's also elements in this game as well where you can get to choose to be a more brutal Batman in terms of your line of questioning and interrogations you do. You can choose to be more brutal into your interrogations, whether it be like breaking arms or fingers, or you can be more of a calm, I guess calm strategic Batman, and kind of go with that as well. And there's certainly some moments that happen with that you're still very early on in the game as well, that the police don't trust you, so they sometimes they want to shoot you on sight. And as always, Jim Gordon has always got to stop their shenanigans from shooting Batman all the time.
Yeah, that's the good old Jim. You'd be looking like Swiss cheese now if it wasn't for him.
So there's that, and it's different approaches you can take to kind of how you want to mold your Batman, how you want your Batman to be. It can be a good balance. Oh, there's also a scene as well when you try to get some more information from Falcone. You break into his penthouse. Before you even do that, you throw your Batarang or your remote surveillance device, and you start surveying the penthouse, and you get you examine everything. You get to select the enemy that you're going to take down. You get to choose two different options on how you want to take him down. You can either drop a chandelier on his head, or you can grab him or slam him through the table. And then you can initiate those alternate takedowns before you actually go in there. So it's kind of also like a little interesting mix up of how you want to handle the gameplay as well, which is really cool what they did with that.
But you're slowly convincing me. I'm really okay. I'm really might be interested in getting this now. But how's the writing?
I think the writing is very very solid right now for where they were setting up the foundation of what can come from here. There's a lot of potential for, just like any Telltale games, the writing is on par as like what their other properties was. I feel you on the same. I feel you the same way with kind of the reasons why the Game of Thrones may not have been as well done, because of all those restraints they had in tying it to the show. It's probably the primary reasons why it didn't work as well. I feel like they have less restrictions on this title now than they did with the Game of Thrones one. So there's way more possible. There's way more possible things to do and not be so heavily restricted, where it will create a lot of inconsistencies. So I feel the writing is pretty good so far. There's a lot more to come, which I'm very excited to see what happened. I know I'm slowly convincing you, but I would give it a chance. Probably, I'll give it a chance, but I know you're gonna give it some time when we get into like probably episode 3 or 4, because I think there's 5 episodes right now. So I'd probably you're playing it smart right now with waiting on it to be either concluded or kind of later when it gets down to like the 4th episode, and you want to speed through that. But like you said, I would probably give it some time before you decide to go full force into it, but I'm liking it so far from that first episode. It did leave a pretty good impression on me.
Good. Well, then I shall once again look into that and keep it in the back of my mind.
There you go. That's all. That's all we can ask for.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't had the chance to play too much besides walking in and looking around the area. I haven't had a chance to play too much of the new Hitman episode that's in Bangkok, Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I mean, I'm really liking it a lot more than I did the Marrakesh episode. I wasn't a big fan of the last one. There wasn't. It was really the level design. There was certainly a lot more things they could have done. I feel like there wasn't as much variation or options for you to kind of get your way around Marrakesh as there is in like other previous episodes.
Right.
It looked
you
really cool on
that first episode.
It looked really nice on screen. Like just being in Marrakesh was really pretty interesting and cool because you're starting to see now more of the international aspects of 47, which you didn't get too much of in Absolution because it was primarily set within the U.S. But you see more of the international man of killing. As you get 47, you get to see him go through different locations. In the next episode, I think it's going to be set in Japan, or it may be the last episode. But there's Japan, and also there's I don't remember what the other one was, but there's a Japan episode. That one I'm looking forward to the most. But the level design in this one is always top notch. You get to see the distance. You see out of the distance of Thailand, and you get to see the cities from afar, and the details and the attention to details is always on par with a lot of these episodes. I need to play more of it to really give a full assessment on it, but I'm liking what I played so far, and that was just me walking around this hotel, examining people.
Well, that sounds pretty darn good, even just from the get-go.
Yeah, I really wish I had enjoyed the last one a little bit more. The location was cool, but they needed more options to kind of get around and other options to do things, because it was, for the area itself, it's very hard to do things without getting noticed, because there's so much body of people walking around in these little outdoor markets, and you have to also go inside this business building as well to do two different tasks, and just kind of, I didn't feel it was the strongest one, but like episode 1 was great. Episode 2 in Sapienza, Italy was probably my favorite so far out of this installments of episodic Hitman games. So episode 2 is very solid, and I think I may like this new one once I get the chance to play more of it and actually finish the level. I think I may end up liking that as well. So there's 3 out of the 4 episodes I really like the most. It's going good so far, and I hope there's more development in terms of what the hell's going on. But if not, at least I'll get enjoyment of the gameplay.
Yeah.
Rather than anything else.
Well, that's promising.
It is very promising. That one I guess I could lean on the sake of safetyness to wait on until it's all concluded to play it all, because that's how I would want it as well. But me being such a eager fan and don't want to wait for those, it's certainly worth checking out all the episodes, even though I wasn't a fan of the third one. But all 4 of them are probably still solid to play, and there's many challenges to complete that'll pretty much have you do these levels, each of these levels at least 4 to 5 times. So there's a lot of replayability in that, and changing up your tactics and a way of approaching each level every time you repeat it. So it's always that. There's always that. There's a lot of replayability for sure. And you also get exclusive like targets that appear. Probably, I don't know if they're still doing it, but I remember the first elusive target that they had introduced in the game where it's just a whole new target in the same location that you're at, and you don't tell you where they are. You just have to find them, and they're only available for like a limited amount of time, and after that, they're no longer available. It's like a limited time event kind of thing. They had in the last episode or one of the it may have been one of the last targets they had. It was at a certain location from a previous episode or two. I don't know what their marketing is doing with certain celebrities. They have Gary Busey. You can get to assassinate Gary Busey in one of these as elusive targets. It just boggles my mind. You have my
attention. I'm not. That sounds very, very interesting. Are they all celebrities that you get to assassinate, or is it just like any random people, and also Gary Busey's here?
No, mostly they're all just random people, and I guess they semi have Gary Busey tied to their marketing with the game, but I have never seen any of it unless you really look deep and look into their like YouTube channel. But it's never really been made apparent that he's kind of tied to the marketing of it, but it was more tied to the marketing of it as him being like a limited time target that you can get to kill, but that's about it. Gary Busey, oh, man, you can kill Gary Busey. Go ahead.
If that ain't a ringing endorsement, I don't know what is.
It's very weird, but there's that. If you want to kill Gary Busey, CH.
Oh man, that's one that I've always wanted to add onto the list.
On your bucket list in game achievement, killed Gary Busey.
Oh man, that's worth it in and of itself.
But yeah, man, that's primarily what I've been playing. I mean, I got to check. I checked out the. I finally got to check out the PlayStation Now service after such a long time of it just being there, and I never really bothered to try it. It's PlayStation Now service is where you get to pay like $20 a month, and you can get to play any game from the catalog that they have in the PlayStation Now catalog. It's primarily all like PS3 games, and you get to play them and stream them pretty much. You don't have to download them other than just, I guess, to save, or the save states may go through their servers. Not sure how that works exactly, but it's interesting service. I wish they added more games. They have a good amount of games, but they're not. They need to have a bit more in order for consideration of me even having a monthly service with that. But I liked how it worked, and you have to have a really strong and fast connection for it to function in any possible manner. Because if you don't have a good connection, it'll just start lagging on you, and the possibility of you getting cut off from the game. But I never felt like I was streaming a game at all. Like the quality of it doesn't change at all. And you just have to have a good connection in order for it to just play normally. So I was playing a few different games. I was playing like Fear for like 5 minutes, and Asura's Wrath, which I always wanted to play for a while. I just never really wanted to bother setting up my 360 because I'm lazy and buying the disc. But I was liking what I was playing. I feel like I was just playing an anime. I know that you've played it before, and that had interesting arc to it, and also weird handling of DLC as well.
Oh god, yeah, the actual ending being tied to the DLC, which is absolute baloney, and that is something I will never forgive.
But I'm liking what I was playing. It's very interesting how things are kind of tied into kind of episodes, and it's all kind of presented to you like that. It reminds me a lot like Alan Wake and Daily Premonition, and kind of the way it was presenting it to you like that, but not necessarily how the DLC was handled. Although you can kind of make that same argument a little bit with Alan Wake DLC being kind of like you get more of like a better, more
complete ending.
Complete ending, and Asura's Wrath is the same thing. But Deadly Premonition, no DLC required.
No, it is brilliant from start to finish. It is what Lovecraft is to horror, that game is to just pure bliss. Where if you try to understand the bliss, you only get more blissful. And
the first game to implement real-time beard growth, which was implemented in The Witcher 3.
Deadly Premonition. Deadly Premonition did it first. Deadly Premonition did it best.
Oh man, God,
that makes me want to go play Witcher 3 again. Damn you!
Play Witcher 3 and Deadly Premonition.
It's hard not to just love those games so much. And sadly, I probably will not be able to play that for a while, since I'm going to be working on a few other projects, but I will add that to the list.
There you go. Boy. I gotta replay it again. I want to try out in completing the director's cut version of it, which is kind of like of Deadly Premonition. I want to try out in playing the director's cut because it's on PC as another option instead of getting it on the PS3. But you can play it on the PC, and depending on where you go to, you can kind of get some help with adjusting kind of the resolution of it, because it was kind of locked at a certain resolution, and the PC port wasn't really that well handled. It's not a mess like the Batman game was as a port, but it's not necessarily the best handled PC port of the game, but it works well enough for you to play it. I played it and I didn't have a problem with it. It just I had to look online to adjust the resolution a little bit, and beyond that, you're pretty all set to go. You can always download some textures as well to make the game look a little bit better, but I feel like that's kind of removing what I liked a lot about the game. It was just the way that it didn't look like any other game, so I'd rather not want to try to make the game look any better, because the way it looked originally was perfect for me. in all its like pixelated trees and and distant skies that didn't look like skies at all. That's just that was the charm of it.
Like I said, man, you can't improve on perfection.
That's true. But the only differences with that is that it has some extra scenes in there, and also cutscenes, extra cutscenes. I mean, and also the game is not. I don't think you have the option to change it, but the game is not set in like tank mode, so it's very fluid in its handling, and so it's you can make easily turns, like you actually walk around in circles, not necessarily like in the Deadly Premonition. It was like one of those Resident Evil 2 tank controls where you try to go in a circle. That was it took a little longer than normally would do in real life to do walking around in a circle. There's that. There's that if you were wanting to go with that. I didn't mind it that much, and the UI is a little different, has a little different colors to it. Besides that, it's relatively still the same game. It's just some small changes added to it, just to, I guess, accompany some of the complaints people had at launch. But some of those complaints I have no problem with, because I just dealt with it just like everybody else did that were really committed to the game. I worked through the struggles of the map, and worked through the struggles of the driving and the walking around and the combat. I worked through all that, where I just mastered the controls, and I didn't even complain about it. Once you play it so much, after so many hours, you become a master at those controls, because that doesn't even faze me. It's crazy how you have that learning curve to work out the controls, all just because they were so not as precise as people wanted it to be, or as modern games are.
No,
That was the charm of it.
but once you get used to it, you can't imagine anything else.
Yeah, but I still want to play that and see what else they added to it. And yeah, I mean, there's that. I want to see another game of that from Swery.
I'm still waiting for that next episode of D4, man.
There's that as well. I hope
We're never gonna get it, but I'm still hoping.
I want to play that as well. I hope that I can run it on my PC.
It is. Oh my gosh, it is wonderful and a worthy successor to Deadly Premonition.
I keep that very much in mind. But yeah, beyond that, I haven't played anything else besides those games I mentioned. I need to play more Hitman. We should all play more Deadly Premonition or Hitman.
Yeah, and I think I would. Yeah, I think that is definitely going to be on once again on the docket of things to do.
And all of a sudden I read rumors yesterday that there was. This is just rumors, but I like to believe and hope to believe that this is true. That there's possibly another Splinter Cell game in the works.
Oh, don't test me.
And not even that Michael Ironside is going to reprise his role as Sandfish. That's rumors I hear.
I'm okay. Those are rumors, so I will not do anything. I will not say anything else except I'm looking forward to another Splinter Cell game.
But if it was real, I'd say I'm ready. Take my money.
We are eagerly awaiting, especially after how awesome Blacklist was.
That's just rumors. It's something I saw on NeoGAF, but that's just to be taken with a grain of salt. I guess a reputable source that's been reputable in the past before said that he ran into Michael Ironside at the Ubisoft building, which could mean nothing, could mean something.
Could mean everything.
It could mean everything. It could be a situation where he reprises his role after just like David Bateson reprised his role as Hitman, where he lost it and then he got it back again during the process of the game.
Oof. I don't know.
It could
I
be
genuinely don't know.
Who knows? I mean, since Ubisoft put off Assassin's Creed this year, they could have been working on a Splinter Cell.
Yeah,
it's a possibility.
It's a possibility, and I genuinely don't know what they're going to do next, and I would like to be surprised, no matter what.
I would too. I mean, that's all I want is some good games from Ubisoft, because I have a lot of memories with Ubisoft back when they weren't trying to run games to the ground, and I'm happy that Splinter Cell hasn't been the case of that as well. It could be because of the type of game it is. Maybe they feel like stealth games won't do as well as like Assassin's Creed does. Although that's kind of preposterous to me, but I'm also glad that they haven't released it on a yearly basis as well, because Splinter Cell has always been the title that Ubisoft was started out with. I think that's what they kind of put them on the map, and I feel like they've always, at least in the perspective from our eyes, that they've handled the series really well, and they haven't ran into the ground.
Oh yeah, even with Conviction and Double Agent, those have been interesting side projects that I think that have really helped flavor the series more, and really bent the idea of what the gameplay could do with the narrative in that particular franchise.
Absolutely. So that's hearsay. I hope to see. That's probably well, besides Beyond Good and Evil 2, that's a wish list of mine, is to see another Splinter Cell game from Ubisoft within the next 5 years.
Absolutely. Knock on wood. Hopefully we'll be all alive by then.
Because why not? I mean, it hasn't gotten to the point where I don't want to see a Splinter Cell game, because they're always spread out. They're always spread out within a variety of a few years when they come out, and every time, especially with Blacklist, it left a great impression on me that this series can continue, and the formula still does work, and what they have done with Blacklist. So I don't see any problem with making more.
Yeah. Yep.
Whether it be with Sam Fisher or somebody else.
Yeah.
Or Archer and Kestrel.
I think one of them's dead, but that'd
prequel.
be interesting. Prequel, yeah, that'd be good. Are you ready to head on out for the night?
I am all set to go, my good man. Thank you for everybody for listening, and for CH for dropping down. And it's nice talking to you, because it's been a while. Really has been. I look forward to speaking with you once more, and us getting into the groove of things, and
yes,
talking more about anything and everything with the podcast in the future. I look forward to hearing the podcast you do with Kenny as well on the website as well. If you need help with posting it or anything, feel free to let me know, and I'll do what I can.
You've got it, buddy, and I will let you know. I'm working on editing and logo for the show, and I will put it up as soon as I can. But thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to getting back into the groove of the podcast. And thank you very much for being an awesome host tonight.
Alrighty, thank you everybody for listening. It's been amazing to talk about all things that we love: games, movies, etc. All the great things. It's been a fantastic time. It's beyond that point. I think it's all set to go. I was trying to hold off because I forgot what episode we're on, but we're on episode 184.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride, and I look forward to talking to these lovely people for the next episode. So I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye-bye.